let me just very, very quickly touch on another Magic game that I actually rolled credits on about a week and a half ago. Have you heard of a game called Forspoken?
Jeez, for a second there, it looked like Yuffie from Final Fantasy with that coat. I was like, what am I looking at?
So it's actually kind of funny that Forspoken launched 2 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and it too is an open world Magic game. Very different to Hogwarts Legacy though. The conversation around it has been mostly negative for a number of reasons. I will just come out and say I'll die on the seal that this game was I think reviewed way too harshly by critics. By no means, so just for context, Forspoken is a game that is developed by Square Enix. It was showed off many years ago as Project Athia, as like the next gen, like, wow, this is what the future of gaming
I think during the
like.
PS5 reveal event, actually.
Yeah.
It was,
so when it was shown, I was like, oh man, like a new IP from Square Enix. It looks so interesting. Cool. This is the
everyone
future
thought it was
of
a
gaming.
new Final Fantasy at the time.
Yeah, because it kind of fits
It
the
very much
the bill.
looked like it, yeah.
You in fact, you could slap a Final Fantasy on this. I'd believe you. The single player Final Fantasy game. But the game did launch. It doesn't look nearly as good as we'd hoped it would. It's got some bad design choices, but it's not as bad as people have made out to be. Like, I do think again, like maybe this is a good example. Hi-Fi Rush announced Shadow dropped. Cool. Game's really good. It did very well. Part of the Zeitgeist. Forspoken's one of those games that is spoken about way too long before it launched. It was delayed, spoken about, shown, etc., which I think kind of soured what people were expecting from it when it came out. People were expecting this, wow, like Game of the Year contender, and unfortunately it's not. But yeah, reviewed way too harsh in my opinion. But like, there are reasons for the criticisms. Like, I will say, the open world is very bland. It's pretty much big open areas with just filled with random pockets of enemies. Side quests are like questionable. Question mark, does this game even have proper side quests? But in terms of the story, I'm like, the story is not bad. And the combat, I think after a couple of hours, when you start getting more spells, it's actually really cool. Like, I take my hat off to this team for trying something that isn't shooty mac shoot of like cool, like here's, for lack of a better comparison, like the Ubisoft open world formula of like, cool, you got to climb a tower and do this. Cool, now you've unlocked new weapons. I mean, the combat in this game, the magic in this game is unlike anything I've seen. And if I have, it's something I haven't seen for many, many, many years, if ever. And yeah, I do think it's a pretty average game, but man, it's not as bad as people have made out to be. And if you've had any interest in Forspoken, like, I wouldn't say pay full price for it, but don't miss it. Pick it up on a sale and decide for yourself. I know you played and you were like, nah, not for me.
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I haven't played a lot. Like, I've played maybe 2 or 3 hours, but after those 2-3 hours, I'm just like, I really don't want to play this anymore. It's just really not grabbing me at all. And I know you and Darren and Umar have all said, like, you need to give it like a good 5 hours or at least until you get the second batch of spells.
Yeah.
But then I take into account that this game is, I think Darren said he finished it in 12 hours. I'm like, that's half of the game.
Yeah.
Like,
look, 12 hours is you literally mainlining because I was 13 hours and I did a little bit of side stuff. Yeah, but it's such a pity because I think the world itself is interesting. Like, there's a good setup here. Athia is this magical place separate from our own reality where there's a whole history here. It's like a world gone to ruin for a number of reasons.
Sorry to interrupt, but did you see the news piece that the map of Athia is actually a 1-for-1 with New York?
Oh, I did not know that.
Which is interesting because that's where Frey comes from. So
yeah,
it's like,
so I suppose
this is almost like a mirrorverse of where
maybe,
she was.
Yeah, maybe it's like an alternate version of New York or either.
Quite interesting.
Or maybe far in the past or far in the future. I don't know. But it's just sad because I think there's a lot of good ideas here, but they're not executed properly. So, like, we keep telling you, hey, you should really play more till you get the second set of spells because on top of that, you also get some more mobility stuff, more mobility tools. But then it's like, yeah, it's fun to run around the world, but there's nothing really interesting to see in this world. You run through open fields, come up to some ruins, there's some enemies there, cool. Run across some open fields, come across another ruin. There's nothing like, oh, there's this, there are some games that reward you for like, oh, hey, there's this sort of mountain up there, go climb it. Or there's like a good example that comes to mind is Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like, here's a shrine. Okay, there's a bit of platforming, but there's a reward at the top. It feels like this game doesn't have any of that, at least not in the same way. And it's just, it feels like a wasted thing. Like another example is if you're watching the footage now, I'm doing a boss fight. This game has really cool bosses, but for the most part, they just hidden away. Like this one, I happen to be fighting in the open world, but a lot of the bosses are hidden in these dungeons, which are just linear corridors, which makes no sense. Like if this was on the level of, say, something like Elden Ring, where you explore the world and you get onto a plateau and, oh, there's a boss here. And then you go into a cave and, oh, there's a boss there. But it's not. You go through a loading screen, you get to a whole set of linear corridors and you fight bosses. And I'm like, it just feels weird. Like, I don't know whose idea this was. So it's sad because, like, it's not a bad game, but there's just some bad design choices that really hold it back from being something super special.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Listen, I might go back to it because, like, when I did that pretty big, like, dragon fights, I was like, oh, this combat can maybe be cool. Like, it also, I think the game doesn't look great all the time, but in combat, it looks phenomenal. Yeah. Like, it looks really good.
If you're watching the footage now, I'm just fighting, like, it looks kind of like a giant lava bear. And it is really fun, like dodging.
Winnie the Pooh got fucked up.
Winnie the Pooh, it's a jar of lava. Oh, man.
That's what happens when you eat too much honey.
Yeah. So, and yeah, when you get all your different spells, it's fun to cycle through them and try them out. But yeah.
But then it's like you run, like you said, you run through the world or you go into like a town. Not only do the numerous forests look kind of drab, the towns look awful.
Yeah.
I don't know what is going on there, but they just look bad.
Even the little like checkpoint huts, whatever you want to call them, they're copy pastes. Like
they just look real
I don't
bad.
expect 50 unique different buildings, but when all of them are exactly the same, like it feels like there was just no effort put in here. Somebody made a building and it's like, nah, let's just paste this around the landscape.
I watched Digital Foundry obviously did their video on Forspoken, and John Lindemann there was kind of also in the 50-50 camp where he was like, this game's got great ideas, it's got, some interesting parts, but from a visual standpoint, like the combat looks great, but everything else outside of that is kind of like a regression from where this was in Final Fantasy 15, because it's the same engine.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he doesn't understand how a game that ran on prior console gens looks better than one that is now exclusive to, a PS5. So,
yeah. I don't know.
Weird.
It is weird. But yeah, would say
also,
pick it
I really
up
fucking hate Cuff. Awful. Just awful dialogue. Just fuck. It's just so irritating.
The dialogue is not great, but
it's not as bad as people made it out, but Cuff is awful. Cuff is really shit. Your noise. I wish there was like a mute Cuff button. Like, just good lord, it's so irritating.
Yeah, it's like on there. It's a lot of dialogue. A lot of in-game banter gets repeated a lot. And I'm like, I'm no programmer, but surely there must be just a line you can put in, like, if this has been said in the last 3 hours, do not say again.
Please don't say it again. If this has been said ever, don't say it again. Fucking hell. Yeah. That's Forspoken. Maybe I'll play more of it. I don't think I will. I'm trying to make this year about letting go of games that don't grab me, and that's definitely one that did not grab me. So bummer. It is a bummer though, because I wish it was like a case of, the critical reception was a bit harsh, but hey, there's a bunch to love in this game. Like I think I'm falling more in the camp of, the people who reviewed it and the people who've said they don't enjoy it. Whereas I'm glad you and Umar and Darren have had a reasonably good time with this game.
Yeah, but I think we all agree, like, it's got its issues, but it's just...
Yeah, I don't think anyone's trying to say, this is a Game of the Year contender.
Yeah, but the hate,
I think it's like, I can look past it, yeah.
Yeah, it's way overblown, I feel. But anyways, that's Forspoken.